Alright, today we have Master's Ashe. Oh. What you could have done there is you could have thrown the dynamite first, and then so once the dynamite lands by her, you can shoot dynamite and then shoot her, and then she's probably then you only need to land one more shot, and she's dead. Um, that's the best way to kill someone who's sleeping. Throw dynamite next to them, and then I guess you can either shoot the dynamite or just wait for dynamite to explode and then shoot them once they wake up from the dynamite explosion. That just guarantees the kill on the Mercy. So, Ashe is obviously not ideal into double shield, but she can still work, and the way she would work is um, by landing big dynamites, right? So you never want to. It was a good idea to throw dynamite above the shield, but Sigma can block it. So you normally want to. The problem is Sigma can always block it, right? So you always want to keep in mind where Sigma is and where he's looking at, um, and you want to try to throw it to the side, from a different angle, um, from an angle where he wouldn't see it, right, or something like that. Um, but a good Sigma will most of the times be looking for the dynamite and will be able to block it. But yeah, landing those dynamites is huge for Ashe in this meta right now, because then it means she can get Bob quicker, and Bob can deal a lot. So, moral of the story, I guess, is don't stand in one spot for too long. Like, instead of staying here, if you just walked inside and got on the other high ground there, then you can shoot to the side of them, right? And so shield wouldn't be blocking your shot, and you wouldn't be just shooting into the shield. Um, Obviously, being able to aim is important on Ashe, but positioning is, I'd say, more important in this meta for Ashe than actually being able to aim. Because it doesn't matter how good you are at aiming or how bad you are at aiming. If you're in front of their shield, all you're doing is shooting a shield. So you want to be positioned in a position where you don't have to be shooting a shield, or where you're not shooting a shield. So usually that means either behind them or to the sides of them. And behind is hard to get to, so usually just to the sides of them. Swap off the Pharah. That's good for. No, they don't. Yes. Yes, they do. That's good for you guys. That's too far. So again, you're gonna be just shooting a shield most of the time here, right? So something you can do is maybe walk forward into the building with the mega room. That's a bad arrow. Whatever. But and then get up to high ground there, and then you can be shooting over and down the shield, or you know, you'd be able to get some more, get a different angle. Hmm. Yeah. Your team's dead here. Yeah. Or you lost that fight, rather, so you should get out or die on cart. You tried to get out. Didn't work. That's fine. So notice how you're just shooting a shield most of the time. That was a nice shot, but like with Ashe, you don't really want to ever be shooting at shields with Ashe because your shield break is not the best, right? And what's worse is that you have to reload each individual bullet. So not only is your shield break not that great, but once you use up all your bullets, when you use up all your bullets, the shield's not going to be the shield's not going to be broken, and B, you're now out of things to do. Right now, your only source of damage is dynamite, which you can't explode at will because you don't have to reload, or you just spend like however long it takes to reload. Okay. So you're flanking, right? They don't know you're here yet. There's literally zero reason for you to drop here. What purpose does you dropping serve? You're not any closer to them. If anything, it's harder for you to hit shots because the closer you are, the harder it is to hit shots, right? Yeah. There was no tactical advantage whatsoever in dropping here. If you had just stayed up on the high ground where you were, you don't have to worry about damage fall off because you're so close. You can hit dynamite super easily from up there. If you start getting shot, you can just dip around the corner or back up to the staircase and you be fine. You can get the mini. There's literally no reason for you to. And because you do drop there, you die. Whereas if you had just stayed up on the high ground, you would not have died, and you'd still be able to just shoot. So, not only would you not be dead, right, but you'd create another angle of damage that the enemy team has to worry about. They have to constantly be looking back at you and trying to like either force you away by dealing some damage to you, or by forcing you off high ground like with an Orisa pull. Or they have to commit a Sigma shield to just put in front of you so you can't shoot and do anything, right? That's just unfortunate. You didn't know if Junkrat was flanking. But definitely don't drop off from high ground if you don't have to on Ashe. High ground is super good for Ashe. You don't ever want to lose high ground unless you have a really good reason. And you had no reason to drop off there. So it's a series of unfortunate events. Yeah, that's not really your fault that you lost that. Oh, you get 2 picks. That's big. I didn't think that was gonna happen. Wait, what happens? I thought you die here. Oh, you respawned. Okay. So McCree is sleeping here. You can easily shred him before he gets a chance to get away, and he's far enough that he can't actually stun you without walking closer to you, which means that's more time that he's spending in your line of sight, which means he's gonna die. So yes, it's important to kill Orisa, but you can kill the sleeping bat because he's sleeping there in front of you for quite some time, I believe. Like, he's sleeping this entire fight. Even since before you killed the Junkrat, he's still sleeping there. You should definitely kill him first, and then focus the Orisa, because he's more, like... Yes, you want to kill Orisa's, but a DPS should be a higher priority target than a full health Orisa who's being pocketed by her healers. Because Bastion does a lot of damage, but no, maybe not quite that much damage. I mean, you can kill through a pocketed Orisa with full health as Bastion, because Bastion does so much damage. But your time would be better spent killing the McCree and just taking him out of the fight first, and then you can take your time with the Bastion, or the Orisa rather. So maybe a better spot to hide would be in this cubby here. That's where I like to hide a lot personally as Reaper, because then you get to see them when they're walking by, and most people generally don't check that cubby there. Some people do, most don't. And you can easily drop down onto a tank or their back line and just wreak havoc. Right, they'll push up, and then you can easily drop down onto Ana or McCree or anyone else, whoever's in their back, and at least kill them, and then use your Wraith form to get out to your team. Versus, and the reason why that's so good is because when they're coming from this direction, they're going to be looking towards your spawn. They're going to be looking forward, right? And this spot here would be in their line of sight if they just look up a bit. Whereas here, they'd have to actually look backwards in order to see it, which most people don't do. So I'm going to predict here that you're going to get seen by someone before you drop. Oh, you're so wrong. They didn't see you. That's good. Just a minor thing. That Wraith was unnecessary. Because you're basically reloaded when you Wraith. So you actually take longer to get your bullets back. But it's fine, you guys held, I think. Yeah. And another reason why that cubby is a better spot is because then you'd actually you drop down on them earlier, which means that because it's overtime, or because it's almost overtime, they'd want to be struggling to. They'd want a touch point, or else they'd lose, right? So then, by dropping down on them earlier, that forces them to either play split because someone has to touch, or all turn around on you, which is risky because then if they can't kill you in time, they won't touch. So it adds more stress onto the enemy team, which is why it's. Just half speed this so it's normal speed. Unlucky pull. But I mean, no, that was just unlucky. I'm not gonna say anything about that. So that's a good dynamite. You should get up on high ground. Nice. 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 You're repositioning because you can't do anything from that position. That's good. Nice dynamite. See, that was good. That's what you want to be doing as Ashe. You want to be getting on high ground, and instead of just playing into their, like, shooting straight into their shields, just play around the shield. You get a lot of mobility with Ashe's coach gun, and it's on a 10-second cooldown, so you can more or less reposition yourself around the map pretty quickly, right? So, that's nice. So yeah, just play around shields. That was risky. So, what are you trying to accomplish here with this Bob? Because it got walled off, so it didn't really accomplish much. But even if it didn't get walled off, what are you hoping to accomplish with that Bob? Whenever you use Bob, you always want to be... You always want to have a good reason to use it. That may be zoning people off from a location, from point maybe, stop them from touching. That may be booping up an enemy Reinhardt so you can get a shatter on them. That may be, you know, contesting point, so that, or stalling point. You know, there's a lot of ways to use Bob. That can be using it as a big fat torp turret. Whenever you use Bob, so you want to have a reason to use it. Like, you want to have a purpose that you, like, you're going to say, I'm going to put this Bob here so that it can do this. And then you want to make sure that when you do that, you always want to make sure, okay, what can they do to counter Bob? And how can I place Bob, or how can I play around the counter, or maybe I wait for the counter to be used and then use Bob. So, for example, wait for an Ana to use her sleep dart and then use Bob, or wait for a Mei to use her wall and then use Bob. All of those are things to think about when using Bob. But so here, what does this accomplish? Even if Mei, assuming Mei doesn't, you know, wall it off, Bob has a lot of health, yes, but when 6 people have nothing else to shoot at but a Bob, Bob's gonna die pretty quickly. Cart's still pretty far back, right? It's probably, I don't know, it's not even halfway to point yet. Right? How far is the first point? So after you cap the first point, this one's... So it gets to about here and it needs to go here. So it's about, I'd say it's about almost halfway there. A third of the way there, maybe. There's still 2/3 of the way for the cart to go. And this, well, it's much better to save the Bob for when a fight actually happens, and then the enemy team has to choose to commit resources into Bob, which means it's less resources committed into your team, or ignore Bob, which means Bob can get a lot of damage out. That's if he's used in the middle of a team fight, or like at the start of a team fight or something, right? If you use him now, when they're just like getting back from spawn, they're ready to start a fight, but they haven't pushed in yet, and you're alone up here, it doesn't really accomplish much. Because if Bob wasn't used, they'd still be doing the same thing. They'd still be regrouping. Your team's still pushing cart. Nothing changes, right? Because you use Bob here, they use a wall, They're still regrouping. Your team's still pushing cart. No one's. You're not gonna kill anyone with the Bob. And your Mercy actually dies because she tries to help you, I think, right? Because she does heal you. But imagine how different this team fight might turn out if you had a Bob that you could just throw into this clump of enemies right here, right now. It'd probably look pretty different. This is good though. Flanking is good. You always want to play around shields, especially in this meta. So you might actually end up winning this fight, I think. Maybe, possibly. You don't. It's kind of a stalemate. That's fine. But imagine how different that fight would have turned out if you had a Bob. You just get nanoed out of nowhere. Alright. So, I guess long story short, don't just use Bob because you have Bob. Make sure you have a good reason to use Bob. And a good way to like get into the habit of using Bob for a good reason is just like whenever before, sorry, those are my keys, kind of loud. Before you use Bob, just ask yourself, what am I gonna accomplish with this Bob? Am I gonna use it to burst down someone? Burst down a tank? Am I gonna use it to stall a point? Am I gonna use it to zone off an area? What am I gonna do with the Bob? Am I gonna bait cooldowns out with the Bob? What was that Bob for? Is it zoning people off? No, because they didn't move anywhere. Is it to bait out cooldowns? Maybe. I guess May used wall. Is it to contest point? Not really. You have 3 minutes still to push. That Bob was also kind of meh, you know? Just as a general rule of thumb, a good time to use Bob is in the middle of a team fight or right after a team fight has started. Nice shot. Because that means that the enemy has to make a decision between focusing Bob or to just taking damage from Bob. Oh. I thought you blasted yourself off at first. That would have been unfortunate. Nice shot. See, like that Bob was good. It zoned off the Wrecking Ball and then zoning you off while still dealing a lot of damage into your Orisa. Whereas, okay, that Bob's good. Actually, that's good. Because then it forces them to split up their team with the Mei wall, right? And also by putting it in their back line, you kind of force them to either push forward into your team more or back up. And they end up using a wall. But let's see, what did they do actually? Gets Bob. They back up. They back up when you use Bob. So that was a good Bob. It forced them to back up. And it forced them to use ults. Well, maybe they were going to use ults anyways. But you get the idea. They used ults. Or they backed up from it, right? And that's what you want to do with Bob. You want to make sure you have a good reason or purpose for the Bob. A goal. What is the goal that your Bob is going to accomplish? Just ask yourself that every time. And if the goal is I don't know. I just have Bob. I thought I might use it. Don't use it then. Just wait until you have a good timing, a good place to use it. Good reason. No. You're about to have another Bob again. How are you going to use it this time? That's a fat dynamite chance right there. Nice. That's not bad. Throwing it in the middle of a fight. See, some of them, half of them are focusing Bob. The other half are focusing your team. And that's good. That's what you want Bob to do. Well, that's one of the things that you would want Bob to do. Please jump back on high ground. Please jump back on high ground. This high ground is good. The high ground you're on is good. You can maybe even go through to like this window here and play there. That would have been fine. Because then you can look down over the shields, right? So if this is a Sigma shield or an Orisa shield, if you're, and this is the ground, if you're here, you'd be looking straight into the shield, right? Or you know, Ashe is like this tall, right? If you're here, you'd be looking straight into the shield. If you're on high ground, you'd be looking down over the shield, and you can see people behind it. You're just going to be shooting shields most of the time, unless people like Doomfist go up. And here, you're shooting a shield, and you can't get anything done. And your team C9s, which is really unfortunate. But you should have still been playing on high ground. I cannot stress this enough. Play on high ground, especially in this meta with double shield, Orisa Sigma. You cannot fight against Orisa Sigma as Ashe. Like, in front of, between, if there's a shield between you and the enemy, and you're like on the same level as them, if this was Minecraft, if you're on the same Y level, you don't win. You can't win because you're just shooting shields most of the time, and then that's a huge waste of your time. You're better off playing a shield break hero, a person who can shield break better, or just Doomfist or Reaper who can just go through. If you want to play Ashe against Orisa Sig, you have to. If this is a shield, Orisa or Sigma, you want to not be here. You want to either be to the right, to the left, or behind. Or, if this is a shield, Orisa, you want to be on high ground somewhere. So you can look down over the shield. Or on high ground in front, on high ground behind, on high ground to the left, or on high ground to the right. Either of those options are good. But you want to choose one of them. You never want to be, if that's Orisa, you never want to be here. This is bad. Where you are right now, bad. Right? Because you can watch this yourself. You're just shooting a shield most of the time. And there's really no reason to drop. I mean, Baptiste should be able to heal you up here. The only person who can kind of duel you at this range is their Bap or their Mei. Maybe their Sigma. Dropping to get heals is fine, too. You're healed up now, but you can jump back onto high ground. Because look, you shoot Doomfist because he uppercuts and you can shoot him and he's not in front of the shield anymore. But then for the rest of this fight, you're just shooting a shield. And there's nothing you can do. Or at least that's what it might feel like there's nothing you can do. There's just two shields. I have to shoot the shield. Just don't play in front of the shield. Just go around. double shield is really annoying to play against as DPS. As a DPS, that's not Doomfist or Reaper. Even then, it's really annoying, right? Because it's just so much shields everywhere. So, how do you get around that? Position yourself so that you're not in front of the shield, or position yourself so that you can see above the shield, over the shield. That's a better word. And the reason why Doomfist is so good right now is because his damage can pretty much just all go through shield. His punch can go through shield. His uppercut can go through shield. That's a lot of damage that can just straight up ignore shield. And Ashe's damage does not ignore shield, which is why if you can position yourself so that you don't have to worry about a shield, you're going to be able to do things. You're going to actually be able to do things. And first point on attack, King's Row, that's what you do. You position yourself in a position where you can actually, there's no shield between you and the enemy, because, okay, there's a big sim shield there. Bad example, right? But here you can shoot. Here you can shoot over the Orisa shield, right? Assume the sim shield isn't there, right? Even if Orisa places her shield in front, let's say she's here. If Orisa places her shield here, it'd probably be like that big, right? But you can still see the Mora behind it. And if that's a problem, just move to the right here, and then you'll be able to see everyone who's behind here, right? So the biggest thing to take away from this VOD review, I guess, are if you're playing against Orisa Sigma, position yourself so that you don't have to be shooting their shield. And that's easier said than done, but especially on a map like King's Row, it's with lots of high ground, it's not terribly difficult to do. Yeah, position yourself behind, to the left, to the right, or above shields, so then you don't have to worry about the shields. And number two, second biggest takeaway, is whenever you're using Bob, always make sure you have a set plan for the Bob. Don't just throw Bob out onto point or somewhere on the map. Don't just press Q just because you have Q up. Make sure you have a plan for the Bob, and you have a specific goal that you want the Bob to accomplish. Do you want to use Bob for the big 150 burst onto a tank so that you can kill a tank quicker? Do you want to use Bob so you can stall point in overtime so that your team doesn't have to worry about touching for a little bit? Do you want to use Bob as a big turret somewhere and put it on a high ground so that the enemy can't shoot it, but they can shoot down on the enemy, and that kind of zones them away from that area for a little bit? Bob is super versatile and it can be used in a lot of ways, but just make sure you have a plan for it. Don't just throw it out because you have it. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any more questions about Ashe, I used to play a decent amount of Ashe. I haven't really since Orisa Sigma has become a thing, because I've just been playing Doomfist and Reaper because I'm a filthy meta slave. But yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask, and hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.